Peace, community. Welcome to All Things Genuine Podcast. I am your host, Kamitria, and if you are new, welcome. And if you are returning, welcome back. Gratitude for each of you tuning in and joining me on this genuine journey. Today is Monday, April 28th, 2025, and I'm back with another genuine episode. And today's episode will be a little bit different, and I decided to do that with intention. I want to share a moment that took place a few years ago with you all, and it's actually the inspiration behind today's episode. I was sitting at my desk, and this was at the height of me releasing All Things Genuine, and I was thinking of ideas and brainstorming on different topics that I could talk to you all about genuinely. And one of the titles that I ended up coming up with was inspired by a verse from one of my favorite artists, and that artist is Miss Lauryn Hill. Lauryn has a record called Doo Wop, and on that record, she has a verse where she says, "You know I only say it 'cause I'm truly genuine." And at the time when I wrote it down, I said, how fitting, as the title of my podcast is called All Things Genuine. And I want to share a funny memory that I felt like would be fitting in this episode if I haven't already shared it. But as a young girl, I want to say when I was in elementary, I got the nickname Lauryn Hill from my daycare teacher. And shout out to Miss Keisha if you're listening. But she gave me that nickname years and years ago. And it's so funny because throughout my life, growing up through elementary and into middle school and even into my adulthood, I would meet people and they would compliment me, which I always would receive it as an honor. And I would always think about her when they would say Lauren. And I've even had that nickname in friend groups where they would call me Lauren, and I just wanted to share that. And so today's episode, once again, will be titled, "You Know I Only Say It 'Cause I'm Truly Genuine." And when I was, thinking about titling today's episode, that I thought about my creative process. And I'm not necessarily going to drop today's episode and this will be the title One and Done. I want to actually expand on this title. And that's honestly the beauty in creativity, because when you don't allow yourself to be put into a box and you don't necessarily go by, certain laws or structures and regulations and, trending sensations and how to express what you're creating. I honestly don't subscribe to that. I mean, I feel at certain parts on my journey, I, of course, participated in things unconsciously and, to some degree consciously, just not knowing what that truly meant when I was, utilizing those approaches. But as I've honored this journey of really surrendering to what it means to embody creation, I feel like I'm walking art. I feel like we all are to a certain degree. We are all beings that come from creation, essentially. And I just wanted to talk about that creative process. So, from this title, you all will see down the line where I will title it with that title, and I will extend and expand upon that. So, with that being said, I just thought I wanted to share, where that inspiration came from with this title. Music very much is impactful and is so inspirational in so many ways. Who knew I would pick it up and utilize it in this way? But shout out to Miss Lauryn Hill. I love her music. And speaking of the body of work that she released, if actually not only, well, one, she did release more than that, I'm sorry. But the Miseducation specifically, that album, I went back and played it when I was going through changes years ago, and actually throughout my entire journey. We've all heard, Lauryn Hill's records, and I specifically went back and really dwelled into different artists and their music, starting from the top to the bottom, like I used to do. Like, I don't know about you all, but when I tap in with an artist, I go from top to finish. I want to hear all of the artistry. I want to really, feel the body of work that's being presented to me through the speakers or however it is I receive my music. But I just wanted to share that. And speaking of artists that influence me, especially when it comes to healing properties, I want to highlight that specifically. The other day, I wanted to come on air and record, but y'all, I was too much in my zone and in my frequency, and I just kept it there. And by the time I sat down to even think about recording, I say, you know what? It's a little too late. Even though I've released content, I just really try to honor it when I'm guided, and I say, you know what? It won't hurt to release the next day or the following day. And so this is me showing up once again and obedience. But I was listening to some of the artists that really carried me through, and I hadn't, of course, I listened to things on and time after time. Like my library, my selection of music is so vast, especially if we're talking about genre and different sounds. And I was listening to Cleo Soul. Cleo's music is so beautiful, and along with another artist, Mariah the Scientist. I love, love, love her music. Like, to hear her and, have her release that body of work that she released some years ago. I think it was in 2021, and I think I heard snippets of it. But my goodness, when I was guided to play her music in 2022, oh, did it carry me through. Those records were so beautiful, and I just really wanted to mention those things in today's episode. And I also love how she too is, when she sings and she talks about certain things, and I'm talking about Mariah the Scientist specifically, her music and the messages in her music are so vulnerable and transparent. And then she'll come through with some of the songs with different melodies. Like, I actually listen from top to bottom, and I love, love the music. And I started my days off like that. The past few days for me, mostly every day for me is intentional, but the past few days specifically, I have been really intentional about starting my days, choosing joy, and doing it in a very genuine and authentic way. And when I say doing it in an authentic way, we live in a society now where, and I've been a part of this culture and this trend. Well, not even necessarily a trend, but it all comes with the environment. And I remember I would be able to put on, this smile or, carry um, this persona that everything was fine and dandy with all things in my life, when really I was having an entire tower moment of upheaval, or just things that I was facing, challenges that come in, in life necessarily. But at this time, I'm really honoring things differently, and a lot of people are still kind of stuck in that era, unfortunately. But fortunately, because it really shows me how I've grown, as an individual, and how I can now, like, really show up and honor that, create space for the ways that I'm feeling. And yeah, I've been very intentional. Music always uplifts my spirit. It makes me feel good. I love to dance. I love all of those things. And I love when not only is the beat good, but the message is good too. So, moving further along with, those subjects in nature, I wanted to genuinely talk about something that took place with me and my son last week. And I wanted to share it with the community because I thought it was interesting and intriguing, especially when I share it with you all, for those that it resonates with and you're open to that type of knowledge. Now, this part of my episode will kind of hold a bit of esoteric topics in nature with this next thing that I genuinely wanted to talk about. And it's nothing like of wiki woo woo type, ordeals. It's just essentially talking about things, out, with our planet and outside of it, the galaxy, the stars, sun, etc. So my son had a science project that he had to complete, and he came to me and he asked me for help because he had become, a bit frantic and just frustrated with the list, the list of instructions specifically. And so, me as his mother, my intention in those moments was to pretty much guide him so that he doesn't become overstimulated. And I say, let's slow it down. Let's start here. Don't, you can see and look at the bigger picture of all of the things that you have to do just so that you're aware, but don't allow it to put you in a frenzy and you don't know where to start and you're frustrated. So we started in a certain area, and his project was about a scientific inquiry, and that inquiry was regarding space. And y'all know me, I love talking about all things outer space, and just I found it to be very interesting, and I always have. So when he asked me that, I'm all open, I'm all ears. And that's not just with that subject, but I really do love science. And I helped him generate a list of questions to, fit that inquiry, scientifically speaking. And me and him had a moment where we were just pretty much going back and forth, bouncing ideas to kind of help him with his project. And I told him what I thought about, a part of this existence. And I was specifically talking about our skies and how the colors play a part in what they possibly could represent. Just really having a real scientific conversation, cosmic conversation. And I was talking about the color blue and how the sky is blue. I've always thought that the sky has connections with our oceans because it's blue like the water. And I say that for a number of things, but I noticed that in our skies we do have a lot of things going on. One of those things being, isn't it precipitation, or when the clouds are going through the formation and being formed and things of that nature. It all associates with moisture, and I was like, what if the ocean is like, I mean, the sky is like a big reflection, like, what if our skies reflect? I know for a fact, like, if you're at the actual ocean or the beaches or a river or a lake, whatever it may be, you're going to see a reflection of what's above it. But I was thinking of that, and my son really got me to thinking even deeper. And he was like, Mom, mind you, throughout his entire journey, you all, this child has never ceased to amaze me. And our children will always say things to us, and at times, if you catch it, if you're listening and you're in tune, you'll catch it. Like I said, and I've always heard him say things, especially, regarding outer space. And I'm always intrigued. And he was like, Mama, you know that the sun is like so powerful, like it, like so much that it does, like even when it comes to the sun's light and the angle that it hits us on planet Earth. Because when you think about where the sun is sitting, you know, in our galaxy, it's like the first thing, and then there's planet Mercury, then Venus, then Earth, etc., etc. And all of those planets being in alignment like that, where they're always orbiting, right? And when they're all, you know, going through those orbits, they're all getting, you know, different angles of the sun. And I was thinking about that, and he was like, you know, it has an impact on how we receive light, how we see light, the colors. It's all like under an illumination to a certain degree. He was like, and how we receive colors in our eyes on planet Earth. He showed me this cool video to like connect the dots of what he was trying to tell me and why it's actually blue instead of the sky being a reflection of our ocean or associated with water like that necessarily. But honestly, all of the light that we see is all coming from the sun's light and all that it illuminates throughout the day. So when we see that blue, my son, you know, gave me this perspective, and he said it comes from the light of the sun. That's why it's blue outside. Because I thought it associated with, I really honestly never thought about it in depth until we had this moment. But it made sense. The blueness that we see when we step outside in daylight, you know, blue skies, that color all, you know, comes from the light, from the sunlight, and how it reflects and how bright it is and how it shows in essence. And notice how when it's a beautiful bright day, sunny day, there's blue skies, no clouds really around. Notice the blue light, the blue hue that is all around throughout the daylight hours. And then let's say if it wasn't a sunny day, there were more clouds, you know, in display. The light is no longer that blue hue, right? It's more gray, it's more cloudy-ish, etc. And like even when it's, you know, nighttime, night skies, it transitions. Even the color outside, all of that changes, but it's all due to the sun, you know, going down or setting and rising, essentially. And I just really never thought about that. And I took a lighter and I did like a mini demonstration, like just this is all scientific natured. And I was looking at how when you start a lighter, right, and I have it in my hand now as I'm speaking. So you might hear me doing that, but I'm looking at a flame right now as I'm recording. And at the very, very bottom, it's blue. At the very, very top of the flame, it's light, you know? And I was thinking about that. When you step outside on a blue day, it's beautiful, it's sunny, and the sun is just beaming above. It's the only thing with that light, right? Like I was just talking about the flame, the light at the top and then the blueness at the bottom. But when you look around on a sunny day and the only thing that is beaming in the sky is the sun's light, but you look around, it's all a blue hue. I associate that with that blueness that I've seen, you know, with that fire flame. And when you think about the sun and the layers within it, and you think about fire, especially a fire flame, think about that blue hue. Think about that. I wanted to share that with you all, and I was so intrigued. And he shared other things with me regarding the light and how it illuminates, even down to the moon. Because y'all, for a very long time, I thought that the moon shines like on its own. But it's all due to the sun's illumination and how it sets. When it sets, I mean, when it rises and it sets, it reflects differently, you know, different aspects of the moon in its fullness. It shows us that in phases. And I wanted to share that with you all. So I'm gonna close that part of it out when it comes to and that little encounter I had with my son. It was so beautiful. It was so inspiring and interesting. And I'm like, how does this child come up with such conclusions, and he'll say it in just one simple sentence. Like, I'm like, well, how do you connect? And I'm really intrigued by my son's way of thinking and how he already, I don't know. These kids nowadays, their frequency and how they receive knowledge, and the knowledge that's already really truly and honestly within them and their souls, it's so beautiful to see them just talk, and I take the time to listen to him, especially when he's talking about stuff like that. But moving further along in regards to something that I wanted to talk about genuinely. Like I told you all in the previous episodes, I have been finding it a bit challenging to come on air and really have this space that I've created, because it is so unbearable to be aware. Like, I want to share this with you all. So, recently I had a conversation with family, and I was able to articulate and express what I was frustrated about in certain moments. And I was like, a lot of people talk about consciousness and what it means to be conscious, but I don't really hear a lot of conversations where people are talking about things that they don't really talk about. And what I mean is, no one really talks about how it can feel like a curse to have this amount of awareness and still walk in consciousness. I feel like since I've awakened, I was telling my family, there's just certain moments on this journey where it gets very unbearable to engage, with people, because I see, and it's like Dick Gregory said, once those rose colored glasses have been taken off and you are shown things, you're not going to go back to what it used to be. You know what I mean? It's so it's so fitting. And I always go back to that when I think of these things, but I wanted to talk about that. Not many people are talking about, at times on this journey, this beautiful sacred journey, that sometimes having this much access and this much knowledge and this much awareness, it actually hurts at moments on the journey. That's why I say it can feel like a gift and a curse, because you know what you know, and in that knowing, you take what you know and you don't become forceful. For me specifically, I have not done that on this journey. I've basically, awakened. I've been presented, and I'll try to share the knowledge. If it's received, it's received. If it's not, it's not. I just don't have it within me to be forceful in that way. I'm not going to go out of my way to force a person to change. That change has to be an internal thing, and that's what's really helped me in releasing a lot of this. But I want to be transparent when I talk about it, when it comes to awareness and consciousness. A lot of people don't honor or talk about how having that much of awareness, especially in times like these where, all of, humanity right now is pretty much undergoing a transformation when it comes to information, and consciousness is rising. It's rising. Like, I didn't know that it would be like this years later, because like I said, I feel like I've always gone through changes. But like I said a few years ago, and what's so crazy, speaking of artistry, and it really blew my mind, because when I started awakening, I was so like out of place because I'm like, I have to find, my tribe. I really have to find those that are aligned with the language that I'm speaking because, like I said, I was around individuals at that time that really didn't understand or see me or comprehend, what I was saying. I pretty much was looked at as crazy. And there were a collective, and still is, very much an entire collective of individuals who are tapped in, with source, with the divine in essence, and they're all on a different frequency. And I was just really seeking that, and I was going to lose my place with what I was sharing. But during that time, there wasn't a lot of information out there, and it really takes one to really intentionally seek on this journey because not a lot of people talk about that too. Like, when you wake up, I've seen videos and content, and shout out to those content creators that have videos and pretty much content that will assist those on this journey who do choose to fully awaken, because not everybody takes their free will and makes that option, and everybody has that decision to make. But I'm so grateful for those that have released content, talking about the verbiage, especially when it comes to like downloads. And speaking of downloads, um, wow, Demetria, you're going all over. I was supposed to be sharing another artist, but I will hold that thought about what I was just getting ready to share. But what I found to be crazy when I say I've, been going through really extensive changes over the past few years, there was an artist that I always listen to her music, and I have, her in my library. I actually am speaking to Ariana Grande, and one day I was creating some content and I was choosing a song in essence to go along with the content. And I did not realize that she too had experienced a Saturn return and what that meant. And she had a bit of a clip on one of her projects, her recent, I don't know if it's most recent, but I was like, oh my goodness. And it led me down a path. Even before that, I started seeing other individuals in the industry who are also awakening. And I'm like, wait a minute. So it's not just on my level within community, in the locals and things of that nature. Like, this is happening on a broader spectrum. And I just remember my son, he has some people that he listens to, and I'm a mother to a a Gen Z specifically, and I'm a millennial, and he keeps me, on my tippies. I'll say that. So I'm in tune with a lot of the tunes and things of that nature. And one of the artists that he was listening to, who he liked the song, and it's NLE Choppa. And I was like, he's awakened, and he was one of the main ones I crossed, like I came across his path and his journey, and I was like, wow, so this is happening on a massive level. People that I always really tapped in with, and I'm like, I knew it was the reason why I listened to their music, or I just gravitated towards their energy in essence, because they too are a part of that collective. And there's so many people that have been tapped in even before, with this generation. Like people like Prince, rest in peace, to Prince. Prince would wear an ankh as a necklace. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So you mean to tell me that this was always a thing? So, fast forward in regards to that, what I was going to talk about, before I stopped myself, was the practices that I've been doing. And these practices are very sacred and they're very therapeutic in nature. And meditation is what I'm going to speak to. So I've really believed in the practice of meditation. I love the experience. I feel like each time I intentionally set aside time and spaces where I can do meditation, it's always like an outer body experience. And recently, this past week leading up into the past few days, I have been having these. I mean, yes, there's like some moments of discomfort when I'm doing these practices, but my goodness, I'm so grateful to be on this sacred journey, and I'm so grateful that I've been open to all that God is and the divine in essence. And I've been listening to my body. Like I said, y'all, I'm not good with being in avoiding. If your girl is hurt, your girl is hurt. If I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm mad, I'm fucking mad. And I always honor that. So, with that being said, I just really, when I allow myself to really listen to my body, meditation really gives me that opportunity to listen, because it's a moment where we sit in stillness, we sit in quietness, and in those moments when you're just focused on the breath within the body, it's like your awareness heightens. And as I said that, wow, the synchronicities that I keep seeing while I'm recording, but it's so beautiful. And as you all know, I've shared, esoteric things on this platform, and I've been very brief and very mindful when I share those things. But meditation is something that is a very sacred practice. It's been practiced, since ancient times, and I just really find that it has helped me with many things, especially regarding discomfort, trauma, and releasing those things, because those things that I just mentioned, they carry weight, right? And one thing I'm big on, especially now in my life, is making sure that my heart is centered, making sure that I'm not heavy spirited. I'm not carrying the spirit of anger. I'm not carrying the spirit of pain. I'm not carrying the spirit of being drained, and all of those things. Like, I'm really mindful, and meditation is also, I feel, an invitation and an opportunity for us individually to listen to our body's review, because, like I said again, when you're in meditation and you're in that setting, things come up, and my goodness, you all, I just have to share this with you all, community, because I've had moments with meditation. Meditation is so magical. It really blew my mind years ago when I intentionally set out to meditate, and because I was going through some things, and one of those things being like dealing with anxiety. I had just figured out what anxiety was and how it impacts us. And I'm like, okay, first thing I did was look for ways to naturally alleviate it. I'm not really a big fan of modern medication and things of that nature to alleviate, things within my body in that way. So when I found out about when I found out about, y'all, that Florida is really coming out. And I say that because I noticed when I started traveling, and hold that thought, but I noticed when I started traveling years ago, and this is when I was working in corporate, and I'll never forget, I had a moment in the office, and I got a little upset, and someone, they were very observant of me, and it was like, I did not know. Like, like you showed a whole nother demeanor of yourself. Like, that Florida really came out. She was like, you went from, office etiquette to city girls with a plex. If you understand that. If you're from Florida, you know what I mean. And it's all different throughout the entire state. So I love my state. I just caught myself because I was speeding up my words. And I've been told that, us Floridians, when we speak, especially if we're excited or if we're upset, we can speak more quickly. And so I just wanted to share that. But like I was saying, in regards to meditating, I wanted to find natural ways to alleviate those types of things. And meditation did that for me. Like, after the first day of practicing it, I noticed a difference in how I would respond to things. I didn't feel the anxiety or the pressure and all of those things that come with um, anxiety and things of that nature. I didn't feel that. So, like I said, recently I've been really, really intentional about my sessions when I'm meditating. And I noticed that meditation not only puts you in a stillness, state of mind and a state of being, but it puts you in a state of awareness. And when you're breathing and you're allowing that to really be in tune, and what I mean by that is you're allowing full deep breaths to go into every part of yourself. It will let you know where any discomfort rests or has been dormant. And the past few days, I've noticed that as I've actively and intentionally been meditating, it's really been effective. I began to feel like little sensations in my shoulder and my back. And I ain't even gonna lie, it felt so amazing. And with me being open to even going on this journey of intentionally meditating, my body, I feel, is like gravitating towards wanting to stretch itself. And I want to share more esoteric information. Y'all know we're in the year of nine, the year of Mars, also known as the year of the snake. And when I was thinking of that, that session that I had with meditation and allowing, the energy to really move through me as I'm breathing in and breathing out and feeling where the pressure points are, the tension is. And I knew to a certain degree, especially being one that is actively healing on this journey, I've known that trauma can be stored in the body. And one thing that I found that was really interesting is that wherever the sun shines at the time of your birth, meaning that is going to be your life's force, your life vitality, wherever that sun is shining, in whatever that sign is connected to and it rules, you know, that is going to be very vital for you. And what I'm speaking to really is that some of us store trauma in different parts of our body differently, and on a common scale. Not even, I don't want to say common because I just feel like that doesn't fit it well, but on a grander scale, when we connect on that level, trauma, especially trauma that we all can relate to, those things can get stored in very common places in the body, for a lot of individuals. And in meditation recently, I noticed that the more that I'm intentionally allowing my body to feel and go through those sensations, like it's like a release of control. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt damn good. And I feel like my body is like asking for certain things, for certain movements. And I'm even interested, I've been looking into yoga practices and things of that nature for the past few years, but I really want to get into it because your girl wants no restriction within the body. I really just want to flow and be water. Essentially, like everything that I can release, I want to do that diligently, and I want to do it, in a way that really suits me, because everything is different for everybody on this journey. And I just thought I would share that with you all, community. So if you haven't, tried the practices of meditation, I would never force anybody, but it's a really therapeutic approach if you're trying to release tension. And also, something interesting that took place with me when I was meditating the past few days, and me feeling those points where I had tension, and I also learned about the chakras and what's all connected to it. Like, for example, I felt tension and like sensations in my shoulders and like my back, like the top part of it. And I did research, like, okay, what emotions are stored in these areas of the body? Like, what emotions tend to get trapped in the shoulder area? And when you think about the shoulder areas, you think about the things that we carry, things that like are on top of our shoulders. Like, you ever hear that state where people say, or that saying where people say, it feels like I'm carrying the world on my shoulders, and that's where that comes from to a certain degree. But I found that interesting that we hold tension, stress, and that those type of emotions in that area of the body. And to know that I was meditating and I was feeling those sensations, it let me know that I was really, really experiencing the impact from meditating. And so I thought I would share that with you all. I also had some little laughing giggles outside of the discomfort that I felt with the sensations. Like, I had this giggle box moment. I don't know why, but I don't know if it's just my makeup, like how I'm designed cosmically, but I have these heightened areas of sensitivities. And when I was doing my breath work and meditating, I just I started laughing through certain sessions, and I found out that is a part of like the normalcy in it, and it's also aiding in releasing any tension. So your girl was laughing in meditation, but moving further along, this part of the episode will be a bit more based on something that is very near and dear to me, even though all things I talked about are close to me and I genuinely want to talk about them. But like I said again, it's hard for me to come on air and not acknowledge and honor the things that I've seen and really exercise that privilege that I have at this time to talk about it, and I've been very vocal in previous episodes recently, and unfortunately, for 18 plus months now, we have been seeing the slaughtering of a people through a genocide. And at this time, I've seen people get targeted in ways that I'm just really, I can't even say I'm surprised or I'm shocked, because this is a telltale sign of time after time when history repeats itself, and the games and the propaganda and just the entire agenda that is orchestrated in order to play sides. Because right now we're in a time where you can't really be neutralized. You know what I mean? You're either on the side of righteousness or you're aligning with complicity in evilness, essentially. And what we're seeing right now across the board, I saw a video today that really, it just stopped me in my tracks. And I thought to myself, like, this can't be where we're at as humanity. And time and time again, I'm reminded, like, yeah, this is where we are. And yes, you did just see the footage. And I saw footage today that came out of Sudan, and it was a video of men, young boys, even, and they were all being executed. And I'm like, is this even real? Is this even happening? And I send my heart felt prayers. I will continue advocating. I will continue speaking about these stories. I'm doing so much journaling and really expressing myself and how I'm feeling and all of the things that are taking place at this time, because I just can't with what's happening. And fast forward outside of that incident, there was another horrific video that was being shared yesterday into today. And it was a video of Palestinians sitting in a cafe, okay? Sitting in a cafe. The scene that I saw looked like a scene off of a horror film that was just very gruesome. I mean, to like, I don't even know how to describe it. The fact that we are able to access and see footage of people being slaughtered and just souls just leaving bodies in real time, it's just, it makes me sick. I cry, I pray, I advocate in the ways that I can, whether that's boycotting, if I can show up, when it comes to a protest or when it comes to anything that aligns me to the very work of liberation, whether that's me creatively speaking, doing poetry, doing all of these things in order to talk about what's happening. As a result, right now, we see that people that speak up, they're being, pretty much used as an example, getting targeted for the very statement of, stop this genocide. Like, why is this happening? Nobody's spreading hate. When it comes to the other side, my heart goes out to all sides. No one should have to lose their lives in this way. And the message that was even sent on that day, that this all started last year. And I do want to be mindful when I say that, because this event with the Palestinians didn't just take place on the day that they talk about. It goes decades and decades behind, and I just wanted to honor that in this moment. I watched B Son get on and talk about how she's still alive. Just that statement, it just really, really rocks me, because I feel for her so deeply, because she's showing up, documenting, and recording, and the world isn't moving. I too myself look around like, so profound, like this is where we are right now. Like it just really troubles me, in my spirit. I look at those babies. I don't know what they're doing right now, but it is devastating at how they are orchestrating these attacks and these bombs and these events. Now it's like they are doing things simultaneously where you're seeing them sitting up and losing their lives, children. And I just wanted to take the time out to acknowledge that. And I want to say this, moving forward, we must do the work. I know it's a very scary time. I know that it takes a lot. Some people have their jobs on the line, their livelihoods on the line. And I also think about the other things outside of, because I feel like right now at this very moment in time, there's so much violence happening across the board. But the thing that I really see, that troubles me is the way that Palestinian people are being slaughtered by the minute, by the day. And I come from a people that, has also experienced that, in the black community. And I also want to be mindful when I say that, because I link blackness to the indigenous. And it's just all too reminiscent of the struggles and the connection. And there's also a thing where we have ICE agents, and they are pretty much, picking people up that fit certain descriptions, whether, it's true or not, and deporting people. And these stories that have been coming out have been very hurtful. The latest, the one that I know of that really moved me, and it took me some time to come back on air and really talk about him as well, because I've spoken about many souls. The most recent, Hassam Shabbat. That man's story, his life, even in today, has not left me. I think of him, every day, if not every other day. I think about his family. I think about his cries, how he stood up and how he defied, being silent at this time. And he was pretty much trying to document and show the world what was happening. And I think about him. I think about him, and I will always think about Hassan Shabbat. I will always want to advocate and tell the story about him, because it's very moving in his story, along with so many others. Just imagine the stories that didn't get to make it to the surface once again. But like I said, we're also seeing people being deported. Bring home Kilmar. And I wanted to talk about him and his story. This is someone that was deported and did not meet the criteria to be entered into that process of deportation. It's a scary situation when you think about it. And a lot of people, there's a collective of individuals who, it's been very sad to watch actually, state that, oh, this isn't our fight, and we've already done this, we've done that. But this moment in time that we're all seeing, everybody's connected. Back to George Floyd back in 2020. That right there radicalized me. I've always been, to a degree, you know, radical when it comes to who I am in essence. And I learned to have radical acceptance. The radical part is just something that is just, a natural art. And that moment, when it happened to George Floyd and the whole world stood up for George and they marched and we had those things take place, that was monumental in so many ways. And even though as tragic as it was, it opened our eyes on a higher spectrum at just how far we actually hadn't come. These things can still be done. And I remember, really being affected by that moment. And then moving forward, seeing what happened to Breonna Taylor. And, years prior to that, we saw what happened to Sandra Bland and just the many, 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 many names. Trayvon Martin, God rest all of their souls. And I've just always been moved on a soul level. And each time that these things have been happening and happening, it went from one culture to the next body of people, as you can see. When George Floyd, lost his life, the whole world stood up. Breonna Taylor, the world stood up. The one who was jogging in Georgia, Ahmaud. I mean, it's just so many. Everybody stood up. When we saw, things happen in other communities, and then we saw, efforts being made to protect certain people. And it's like, well, wait a minute. We, as a people, within the black community, we haven't even had things addressed. Yet we still stand here. And I just want to talk about that genuinely. And my heart goes out once again. I just really hope and pray that humanity stands up to the occasion at this time. We're in a very potent time of our lives, and no human deserves to leave this earth in the ways that I've seen the Palestinian people, the people of Sudan, and the people of the Congo, people all over this planet. My prayer is that oppression is done away with. It ceases. We're all here with purpose. And I just want to do my part with showing up on my platform and talking about that. I don't really think that in this moment I have more that I want to push forward and talk about genuinely. But you all will see more when I talk about expanding on this episode. I only say it because I'm truly genuine, and that title alone is so fitting for a plethora of things that I'll be saying. So I'll leave you all with this community. I hope that you all have enjoyed today's episode. I normally don't talk about things happening to that degree in the world. I talked a little bit about film, artistry, music, meditation, and, scientific conversations. I just really wanted to come on air and genuinely talk about the things that I felt, should be talked about. And it was a first for me. So thank you all for listening. And until next time, loves, stay genuine. Peace.